Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul is going to chair this session, so may I please request sir to please start with the proceedings. Thank you so much.
It is a great honor to be here with all of you, and particularly with the esteemed principal of Ramanujan College, and also the director of the Center for Ethics and Values, Dr. T.K. Mishraji, and our other panelists like Dr. A.K. Merchant and Ms. Anshu Sahai and Mr. Tsong Gilbo Arya and Mrs. Pialiji. Okay, so I think how the Honorable Principal, he conducted this morning's program, I would say that this is actually a good idea to follow the system where each participants, of course, I'm assigned to give a presentation for about like 15 minutes, which I'll make a little after that. And before that, what I'd like to share with you is that each of the other panelists will first of all get like 15 minutes to share their own views, whatever the presentation they have prepared, followed by another like 5 minutes each for you for question answers, internal question answers, and followed by the questions open to the audience. Okay, so this is how we're going to follow, and I have a quick PowerPoint presentation. I'll try my best not to take much of your time. Okay, since that this morning already we had wonderful presentations, and then this here we have the number of brilliant panelists. I don't want to take much of your time here, so I like to begin with this statement. Okay, those of you at the back, can you see the what is on the screen? Can you see? No, you cannot. Those at the back. Okay, if blocked by others, I'm sorry, but light-wise, it's fine. It should be fine. Okay. So basically, the universal ethics that we are talking about. So why do we call this as universal? One, why do we call this as universal? And why ethics? This is number two. To be very direct, universal has a connotation that what is accepted by one tradition, one person, may not be accepted by the other tradition, other person. If this is happening, this is not universal. Universal means something which everybody, whether you're a believer, non-believer, whether you are following Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism, whatever you are following, you can still accept the same value. So those values which everyone, whether believer or non-believer, whether scientist or non-scientist, educated, uneducated, everybody can accept and have to follow for their own happiness. So that is known as universal. Number two is the ethics, a way of conduct, engaging, embracing, with which it makes you a happy person. When you're happy, you can export this happiness to others. So that way the community becomes happy, you become happy. So this combined together is known as universal ethics. Something, a value, which everybody can embrace to make oneself happier and to make the community happier. So this is the idea. And I like to, because that the whole concept is on the universal ethics, I like to quote Albert Einstein, because he, if I quote him, if not 100%, at least 99% of the people of the world, of the 7 billion human beings, will say that this is universal. Okay, with this in mind, before I just read what he wrote, it may be a little technical, I'd like to summarize what he said, and then we'll read this together. So what he said is that that all the problems that we go through, they're all because of our very narrow-minded and our imprisonment of our own thoughts. Our thoughts being imprisoned by thinking about the self, and only the small circle around you, forgetting about the bigger part of the universe, So this, he says, that this attachment to the self and attachment to the very small inner circle, this is the optical illusion. This is just an illusion. Why it is illusion? Because the fact is that we are all interconnected. And on top of that, we think that I should confine myself to this so that I'll be happy and others will be unhappy. This is never the truth. So what he says is that this is an illusion, this is a delusion, optical delusion, and which forbids us from experiencing greater happiness. And this is a prison for us. It imprisons us. Now, how to get out of this prison? He says that expand the circle of your compassion towards others. So this is what, if I say this, that just expand the circle of others, let others expand the circle towards you, what is your response? You'll be very happy. Let others expand their circle of compassion towards you. Everybody will be happy. So this is what he is encouraging. So let me read what he okay, those at the back, if you don't see that, I'll read it for you. A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feeling as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. Consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us in the halfway. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task, now what should we do now? If this is a delusion because of which the world crisis is all occurring, what should we do now? He says, our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Okay, I simply like to quickly go through the overview of what I've prepared. I'm not going to go into detail. So one thing that I like to let all of us know is that, say, when you speak about ethics, it's just how we behave. And what we behave is determined by what we think. Our thoughts determine our behaviors. So the thoughts, they are nothing but a manifestation of your own mind, your mind. And your mind, if you look at the mind, how the mind behaves, it's not just a single entity. It has a tremendous spectrum of the nature. So the spectrum maps, the map of the mind, how the mind works. So we see that experience of happiness is a mental state, experience of pain is a mental state, anxiety, anguish. Now today, amongst the youth, the mental health issues is just becoming very serious. So all these is a mental state, happiness, unhappiness, and these what gives rise to this happiness, unhappiness, which are all the manifestations of your own mind. They are also dependent on the driving emotions, emotional factors, emotions which drive our thoughts, and the thoughts drive our actions. So it says that map of happiness and the causal positive emotions which are responsible for giving rise to the happiness. So these we'll call them as these positive emotions, because in a very secular, in a very universal sense, we cannot speak about cardinal sin, cardinal this, that. We have to speak in a very secular, universal sense. From that point of view, what really gives rise to a genuine happiness is known as a positive emotion, and what gives rise to miseries is destructive emotions. So these we have to study. We have to study in detail. So what are the destructive emotions? as a part of the map of this mind. And then finally, the next part is, if we are to really impart this universal ethics in the education system, and say in the amongst the teachers to teach their own students. So the methodology, this is a very serious question. So we talk about, okay, this we have to do, the teachers should be passionate and so forth. But I'm not passionate, so how can I become passionate? You have to be passionate. You have to be passionate. This doesn't help. So we have to now learn. We have to teach. We have to explore how to make someone passionate rather than say that you have to be passionate. I don't know how to do it. You have to be passionate. This doesn't help. So we have to give trainings how to make someone passionate in teaching, particularly how to make someone passionate in making others learn something which would be meaningful for yourself, for the individual, and for the community. And the detailed explanations are there. And okay, so now this morning there are so many discussions were going around the universal ethics in the modern education system. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama came up with three steps or three factions of introducing secular ethics in the modern education system. Otherwise, people speak about, okay, ethics is fine, but the question is, if we exclude the religion, then oftentimes people behave nicely because of God being a God-fearing. God-fearing means you bring in God, concept of God, which means the religion. Without religion, then if somebody doesn't have the sense of God-fearing, how does the person adopt ethics? One. And then those who do not believe in God, never mind. They have the concept of karma. Oh, we should be careful that we behave nicely so that I don't suffer in the future. I accumulate positive karma. I don't accumulate negative karma. But if the religion is taken out, then the concept of karma goes away. So, and then it's not that in the context of universal sense, how can you bring the concept of karma? So this is another issue. So if you once you take away the concept of God and the concept of the God-fearing and the concept of karma, then how are you going to convince someone that ethics is something to be embraced? This is the question. So for this, His Holiness came up with 3 points. One is the common experience, on the basis of the common experience. Number 2 is common sense. Number 3 is scientific findings. To make it very quick, common experience meaning everybody, everyone, whether you're a believer or non-believer, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in karma or not, it doesn't matter. We all have the common experience that when we as a very young child in the mother's lab, and you being breastfed by the mother, this is the best of the moment. This is the happiest of the moment. One. So this is a common experience. From this we come to know that, and this experience that you are going through does not have any religiosity. It does not have any philosophy. This is a pure love and affection that you're getting from your mother. So this pure love and affection, that gives you such a confidence in your mother, and the mother feels such a confidence and love towards you. So there, everything dissolves. Only love and affection remains. All destructive emotions dissolve. So where the love and affection is there, a genuine love and affection is there, all the destructive emotions dissolve. And believe it or not, all the chaos of the world, disaster of the world, they're all rooted to the absence of love and affection. Terrorism, gender discrimination, and the gap in rich and poor, they are all because of the lack of love and affection towards others. Then number 2 is common sense. On the basis of common sense, we see that where somebody is more loving, the person has more friends around. And the person feels the place as one's home. And the person feels all others around you as your friends, brothers and sisters. Where you don't feel this love and affection from your side towards others, wherever you are, even be it your own home, you don't feel at home. Even be it your own siblings, you don't feel them as your siblings. They're seen as the worst of the enemies. From the point of view of the common experience, common sense as well, the love and affection, which is the anchor of the universal ethics, that is what is required to be convinced on the basis of the common sense. Number 3 is the scientific findings. Scientific findings meaning that there is the scientific findings, for example, like the experiments being conducted on the monkeys, where the baby monkeys, they were separated from the mothers in childhood, and then as they become grown up, then these baby monkeys who were grown up, who did not get the chance to spend time with their mothers, they tend to become so aggressive. They did not know how to play with other monkeys. They simply were there to defend themselves and to fight with others, only know how to fight with others and does not know how to play. Whereas those monkeys who were brought up with their mothers, later on they become very playful, they become very happy. So these are all what is scientifically being found. So on the basis of these 3 constructs, His Holiness argues that the love and affection, the genuine love and affection, which is at the core, which is at the anchor of the universal ethics, this is what is to be inculcated in the minds of all. Okay, I don't want to go into the other details. Okay, so one thing I may quickly share with you is with the challenges. Now, if the universal ethics is to be taught, introduced in the modern education system, one challenge is the identity divisions created on the basis of identities. Oh, I'm Tibetan, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm Buddhist, I'm Hindu, I'm Muslim. The moment the divisions are there, the attachment to your own identity and aversion towards the other's identity is bound to happen. So this is one of the greatest challenge. One of the greatest challenges. So how to overcome this? This is a very serious matter. So for this, what I usually share with other people is that one individual person can have as many as hundreds of identities. For example, say, I'm a man, and then on this basis, male chauvinism arises. And because there's male chauvinism, feminism is also there. Feminism comes, right? Feminism comes. And there's, okay, I'm Buddhist. Oh, then you are non-Buddhist. I'm Hindu. You're non-Hindus. I'm Muslim. You're non-Muslims. So this division is bound to happen. So with this, the danger, unless the person is very evolved, the tendency is that we tend to hold on to the insignificant, less significant identity as the most significant identity. On this basis, the divisions occur and fights occur. So the fundamentalism, all this radicalism, they all come into being because of holding on to a less significant identity as the supreme, as the most important identity. In other words, say people in this part of the world, say below Tibet, on the other side, Pakistan, and from the other side, Myanmar, this place which we call as India now. All the people in this place, they feel themselves as, I am Indian. Believe it or not, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, Indian, it did not exist. It existed as fragmented kingdoms. So what made this India to come as one unity, as one identity as Indian? Because the Britishers, they said, hey, you are not allowed to come here because you are Indian. And you said, no, I'm not. I'm a Delhiite. I'm not Indian. I'm Delhiite. And someone will say that from South India, oh, you are Indian. You cannot come here. No, I'm not Indian. From Mysore. Mysore kingdom is there. Kingdom was there, right? But they said, no, you're Indian. Then the people started to feel that we are Indians. So what I say is that likewise, why not we all have the identity as a human being? As a human being. Oh, this is so weird. It's not at all weird. If a UFO, what is that? UFO, are unidentified flying objects, aliens, if they come and start shoot at us and say that you're from the planet Earth, then we always have the identity that I'm from planet Earth, right? Then we become all united. We all become united. So now, why should we have to wait for external factor to determine your identity? Why don't we create our own identity? Finally, of the different identities, see which holding to which identity makes you happier, makes the world happier. And naturally, we see that holding the identity that I'm a human being. With this identity, you hold it, we see that you are happier, and you will see everyone as your brothers and sisters. Whereas when you see that, oh, I'm Tibetan, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm Buddhist, I'm Hindu, I'm Muslim, if that surfaces, then the conflicts arise. Okay, so this is one very serious matter. Okay, this is I like to share with you, and then I will show you a clip. I'll show you a clip. This will tell us, this quick documentary film will tell us as to what should be a universal ethics, right? Okay, so let me quickly share with you what I'm going to show you here, is that back in 1939, there was one gentleman, very young gentleman, very young boy, and who risked his own life to save 669 young children from the Nazis. And he somehow managed to put them, or give a passage to them to go to England. So somehow these 669 young children were saved of their life. He has nothing to do with these people. They were all just, and those mostly the Jews. Then what happened? That after about 50 years, all these young children, those who were alive, all these young children, they were so fascinated to meet with this man. So this man, tell me, what made him to risk his life and in order to save the life of these 669 children? What made him to risk his life? All because of his genuine sense of compassion towards others, not seeing the difference that I'm Britisher, I'm non-Jewish, and you are Jewish. He did not see this difference. He see them as another human being who is suffering. I don't want to see them suffering. So this love and affection that made him very special. So if we can inculcate, if not to that extent of risking one's own life, but at least if we could say inculcate, like say 50% of the love and affection which he embodied to another person, or say like 30%, 20%, if we can embody the quality of love and affection which he had, then this world will find a very different, harmonious, and happy world. Okay, so let me quickly read this, if those of you at the back. In 1939, on the eve of the World War II, a young British stockbroker called Nicholas Winton did something truly incredible. He risked his life to successfully save 669 mostly Jewish children from Czechoslovakia during the Holocaust by ensuring their safe passage to Britain. And then, like a true hero, he never spoke of it again until 50 years later, when his wife found a scrapbook in the attic of their home that contained the names, pictures, and documents of the children that he saved. Sir Nicholas, who was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II in 2003, and who received the Czech Order of the White Lion in 2014, and died in July 2015, aged 106. Dubbed the British Schindler, by the British press. He appeared on a UK television program called That's Life in 1988. He was invited as a member of the audience, totally unaware that the people sitting around him were only alive because of his bravery and selflessness. Okay. So those of you at the back, if you cannot see this, you may stand up to watch it. You may stand up. Okay. I'd like you to make sure that you see this. This is a very moving and it will really touch us. This is extremely wonderful thing for us to do. So this is the universal ethics. He was not asking about the 669 children, whether you are Christians, whether you are Muslims, whether you are Buddhists, whether you are Hindus. No. Simply because you are human beings, you should not die. So this is what he was doing. So this is what we can learn from him. See if we can inculcate like 80%, 60%, 40% of the quality of the love and affection that he had. Okay.
All the letters. But back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamant, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton. Hello.
And it was just so wonderful, so terribly, terribly touching.
Is there anyone in our audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?
Okay, so these are some of the suggested readings. First one is Towards the True Kinship of Faiths, is about how all the religions, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how he encountered with all the different religions of the world. Number 2 is Beyond Religion, which is talking about the universal ethics. And number 3 is again another one, Ethics for the New Millennium. And the number 4, there were so many economists. There are so many economists and also from the commerce background. So the 4th one is The Leader's Way. It's a book how we can have the very compassionate economy, how you as economist, you can lead a very compassionate, ethical life while following following your own discipline. And the last one is the Force of the Good, which is again by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but written by Dan Goldman. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now what we have is that first we have the director of the Center for Ethics and the Values of Ramanujan University, Dr. T.K. Mishra. So we'll have 10 minutes of your presentation.
At the outset, let me thank Tibet House. Before that, I would like to introduce the department that has primarily come to this function. This is Department of Commerce, essentially. And Department of Commerce means the creator of corporate leaders. So I must say that Tibet House has done a wonderful job by making an effort to sensitize them with ethics and values. They are already quite serious about it. That's why they are sitting here since morning. Well, lead by example is a golden principle in the corporate world. And I'll give you a small example that in the morning I said that our college has reached a considerable height in the university system because of our principal having total faith in ethics and values. Well, today is an office day, a weekday, and you can see yourself, our principal is sitting since morning and listening everything so patiently. That shows how much of interest he has in these things. That is called leading by example. Now, this is a role of universal ethics. As it has been said, the religion is not necessary for behaving ethically. Even a non-religious person can behave ethically. Everyone is equal in wanting to be happy, loved, respected. That is the concept of universality. Indian wisdom is based on moral education and universal ethics. Beyond doubts, I need not explain. Our development is barricaded in the want of universal ethics. Narrow-mindedness, whatever our Director Tibadhau said, and earlier speakers have also said, that unless we have open mind, we cannot grow. Now, transformation is required both of the teacher and the student. Well, we know that the technology is growing at exponential rate, and our thinking is growing at a lateral rate. If we want that our thinking should go exponential, we need transformational style, transformation of the teacher also. Now, universal ethics, a must for introducing transformational style of teaching. A new technology is new way of doing, and universal ethics is new way of being. There is difference between becoming and being. You can be the Prime Minister of the country by adopting unethical means also, but you can only become. You cannot, if you want to be a good human being, then of course there is no other way than adopting ethical ways. We are always trying to become something, to become a multimillionaire. But if we want to be a good being, then of course we have to adopt ethics and values. Now, few serious questions. How to transform so as to bring about change from linear to exponential thinking, as I said. How universal ethics can bring about peace, freedom, satisfaction for the human mind. Well, I sincerely feel that those who are not able to perform well are perhaps not so satisfied with their pursuits, with their performance, with their job that they are doing. So contentment is very important. Satisfaction, job satisfaction is very important for a good performance. Now, how to preserve identity of the teacher's self along with plurality of the community. Identity is very important. I beg to differ with the earlier speaker, Dr. Dandul. Being selfish is not wrong. If you are serving your self-interest, then you should think that it is not bodily interest, it is not sensual interest that self is talking about is a total mind, body and soul. So if you are able to satisfy all the three components, oh, you are a wonderful person. So the food for soul, the wants of soul must be met for complete satisfaction. And then of course you have to admit that different individuals are different free souls. There are plurality also. I have my identity, but I must accept that plurality exists in the society and I have to adjust with the plural sense. So that is also important. Now, how do we build a strong and sustainable character of the self? Again, talking about morality. Does universal ethics have transformative power that makes one stronger and self-actualized? You know, people sometimes are confused that if you want to be winner in the materialistic world, you have to sacrifice, ethical style and everything. My firm faith is that even in the materialistic world, even if you want to become billionaire and multi-millionaire, you have to toe ethical ways. I tell my students often that look here, who is made CEO of a corporate world? A person who is not bought for crores rupees and the entire organization has faith in that person, that in the locker he has billions of dollars he will not take away home, even only that person can be chosen to be the CEO. So even to achieve your height of your glory, even to earn more, if you are not dependable, you cannot do that. And to become dependable, you have to be ethical, you have to be honest. A very simple thing I give them, that you see, you have a wonderful cook at home, a wonderful driver at home. You like him, you appreciate him a lot. But one fine morning, you find that your cook has started stealing money from your pocket. Next very moment, you will oust him from the house. If you cannot tolerate dishonesty from your subordinates, how do you expect your boss to accept your dishonesty? Such a simple things. I was talking to Mr. Balaji earlier that these things, are so simple to understand. It is not complex at all. But we refuse to accept it, that it is simple. That is the only thing. Now, it is not coming. Yeah. Well, let me give you instance of our college. How do we began in a brief? This is we organized one ethics seminar, governance and ethics in 2010. At India International Center, and there in the valedictory section, the chairman was the UPSC chairman, and he somehow was so much convinced that he went on to the extent of announcing that he is going to introduce ethics and values as a compulsory paper in UPSC exam, and that he did later on. That inspired us a lot. One, and then the name of our college itself. Our college was renamed in the name of Srinivasa Ramanujan, a great Indian mathematician. And when we went through his life sketch and everything, he was unthinkable how he led such a simplistic life, and such a ethical, and he was so much spiritual as well. So that inspired us, us meaning our head of the institution, our team, core team, everyone, to go ahead with such Center for Ethics and Values. Now, regular meetings of NSS and Ethics Center are held to ignite minds of students on action programs. These units under the supervision of the center comprise more than 700 college students. For the awakening of heart and renasa of the spirit to develop skills, talks are held by outside luminaries and institutions like the Baha'i House. Now, universal ethics empowers. Universal ethics empowers those who respond to the invitation and initiatives of the self. It generates both high-level productivity and self-inquiry. It creates both self-transformation and responsible freedom. It ensures both trust and peace. Now, unique intervention method 2013-16, Miss Kia Shea's USA, who's the entire, husband and two young daughters were killed in, the Taj 9/11 episode. She's a lone survivor, and she talks about peace and everything. She is from USA. She came to our college, and she talked to our students, and then she launched one, peace program there. And then we organized Antargyan, Daan Utsav, Virasat, and Service Camp in 2014. Now, these are certain things that we did. This is the peace place with Miss Kia Shea, she gave with the students. Now, these are the benefits that we have observed. Commitment to ethics prevents misconduct, as our principal said in the morning, makes learning insightful, and promotes culture of ethics in the campus. Based on the research on 700 students, Nagma Siddiqui was talking about this particular thing in the morning, that she conducted research on 700 students of our college, and she found that instructions of peace and values had tremendous positive impact in their minds. That's that we published in our International Journal of Applied Ethics. Now, our select 5 students received internship award on ethical management in 2015, and 5 are registered for this currently. Campus placement increased. Out of 300 aspirants in 2015, 160 students were selected by TCS, IBM, Genpact, ICICI. A realization that servitude is important to overcome solitude, enhance sociability, create harmony within and outside, earn social support, love, respect, and trust. This we experimented, and this we were able to convince our students. Elements of self-respect and self-confidence in students began reflecting in our newsletters, magazines, workshops, conferences, and outreach programs of the college that we hold from time to time. Now, these are the glimpse of certain things. Daan Utsav, the Daan Utsav, 7 days Daan Utsav we organized. One day blood donation, another day, knowledge. We asked the destitute children to come to our college, and our students taught them whole day, and like that, several things. Their books, everything, they donated different things on different days. I have told you about this. International conferences we organized in the year 2010, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 also. Then Innovation DU project on values in 2013. International Journal of Applied Ethics that we have published 5 volumes, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Books, handbooks, newsletter, booklets that we keep publishing. Activity Learning Week, Antargyan. Joy of Giving Week, Daan Utsav. International Ethics Fest and Ethics Parliament 2015-16. This is the second in the world. If you search in the Google, the Ethics Fest and Ethics Parliament, our college will become next to University of Edinburgh. They only celebrate this Ethics Fest or Ethics Parliament. And surprisingly, this year itself, we organized one Ethics Parliament where we talked upon universal ethics, that and a bill was moved in the parliament that universal ethics should be made, mandatory. It should be made part of the constitution because people are not following it. And incidentally, the speaker of that house, parliament session, Dr. A.K. Merchant is here, and he is the witness to that bill was moved by a section of people, the parliament of the prime minister of the ruling party, and after debate and discussion, finally it was accepted, it was passed. So and now we are also debating upon universality. It is a good coincidence that both the things happened in the same year. Now, 5th International Conference, this we held. This is, we had organized one how to develop life skills. Similar kind of, panel discussion we had, where we had, students also as a panelist, and we talked to them what are the problems in the life skills and how to develop them. These are certain things that we do. What we did, that we went to old age homes, and then we celebrated students' birthday there, and we asked the students to adopt your guardian, your parents in the old age home there, and keep talking to them every week. So they got, if you want to seek their blessings. And on the other hand, we took them to the destitute, slums, and there we told them that you adopt one child, and the parent of that particular child will talk to you always when the child does something wrong. So you have a feeling of guardian, and the parent gets a educated person as a support. So from both the ways we tried to tide up a student of our college, and it was a wonderful experience where we got very positive results in that. Now this is Virasat Ethics Fest. We were planning for holding earlier ethics seminar. Then students came to us and they said, why not have a fest? Because fest excites us and we enjoy a fest. I said, no, nothing doing. We must have fest only. So we accepted their proposal and it went off so well. Service to the society. Our ethics experience, an acknowledgement, A grade we got. Our college was awarded A grade by the NAC within only 5 years of its becoming an independent day college. A self-realization that ethical intervention boosts morale, enhances learning skill, and generates critical thinking. Then we have a connectivity. College students can be enlightened more by connecting content with the real life situation, by making things contextual. This is our learning. As a teacher, we learned these things. Now, classroom attendance, absenteeism can be reduced and the performance of the students can be enhanced. So, a positive view should be there in the minds of teachers. They shouldn't say that people are not coming, students are not serious, they're not coming to the classes. Well, they can be motivated to come to the class. Now, these are some certain community services that we undertook. Students' feedback. We received feedback also, and these are the things. Now, follow-up action. This is the final thing that I am telling you. Engagement with the senior citizens at old age home that we have decided to carry on. Proposed ethics audit by the interns of ethical management. Within the college, we have accepted to conduct this also. Formation of 4H club. 4H means head, hand, heart, and health by interns of the center. Adoption of a more than 100 years old tree as Ramanujan Tree of Wisdom. Participating in various outreach activities of the college. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. T.K. Mishra ji, particularly how you were actually involved in implementation of this universal ethics, and this is very inspiring. I wish that Ramanujan, next time, whenever you conduct the similar programs like this, I request if you can invite more of the principals, the professors and so forth from the other colleges as well, so that they will actually see. And I would suggest that, say, the Dr. T.K. Mishra, I would very much suggest that you give the similar presentation where what the Ramanujan College did must be shown as example to others, so others can learn from this. So this is so important, very inspiring, and thank you very much. Next we have, as most of you already know, Dr. A.K. Merchant, a National Trustee and Secretary, Baha'i Lotus Temple and the Indian Baha'i Community. He is the General Secretary of the Temple of Understanding India Foundation. And Dr. Merchant has been greatly, very proactively involved in so many the institutes, the programs, the universities, and so forth. So we're eager to listen to your presentation. Please.
Thank you very much, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdulji. So this I don't need, so mine is I have a written text. Well, I'm always beholden when Professor T.K. Mishra asked me to join in programs of the Ramanujan College. And somehow, in spite of whatever I'm doing, I try to make sure that I be part of it, because I'm first of all a learner. And there is much to learn as we move in life's journey. I'm also very inspired by the principal of the college. I mean, in a matter of 5 years, what you have accomplished is truly remarkable. Professor V.D. Agarwal, the faculty members, the students. I have a long-standing association with Tibet House. Not simply the Tibet House, but there are some number of other organizations of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, with which also I have been associated as part of my interfaith journey. And I'm always anguished by the kind of suffering that the Tibetan peoples have been enduring decade after decade. Very much akin to also the sufferings of my own co-religionists in Iran, who for the last 770 years. And so there is much suffering, much pain, much calamity, complete bankruptcy of ethics and morality in so many parts of the globe. You touch any topic and scratch the surface, and you find that what is most wanting are those very basic universal principles that qualify us as human beings. They are missing. So we do invoke great names. In India, we are very fond of course, looking at the examples of Mahatma Gandhi, who never claimed to be any saint. He said, I'm just a down-to-earth man, and because of the cause of the freedom struggle, so I have somehow, at this point of time in history, managed to become a very famous guy. Albert Einstein, of course, a very noble, an example of a scientist. And he understood the reality, the social reality of the wholeness. So friends, since in the limited time, of course, I must also acknowledge the presence of our distinguished panelists. Since you are giving me 10 minutes, I'm not personally naming them and acknowledging, since it has been done. But what I'd like to do is, I have a written paper, and the topic is the role of universal ethics in the making of a good teacher. And you know, if a person, if a child, if a young person finds a good teacher in his or her life, it remains forever. I'm sure many of us will be able to recall some teacher from our school time, some teacher from those who have gone into later years, from the college, from the university, or some institution of higher learning. Somebody has surely played an influence. And we must never forget, the very first teacher are our own mothers. The mother is the first teacher. And so one of the crises in education is that if mothers are kept deprived, undernourished, oppressed, persecuted, and always looked down upon, because there is also a parallel program where we talked a lot about gender empowerment. So these are very many universal crises. So I felt that in the limited time, and I have brought copies of my paper, towards the end, I've given some recommendations and some identifying hallmarks. What is it that makes a good teacher? So towards the end, I've tried to, according to my own limited understanding, look at what are the hallmarks of a good teacher. Because if these hallmarks are present, if these identifying qualities or virtues are present, then obviously the person has to be ethical. A person would be a person of values. You need not have to lecture about what's ethics to such a person. So according to my estimation, the hallmarks of a good teacher are, a good teacher is surely a nurturer of culture and civilization. You can't be a nurturer of culture and civilization if you don't have any ethical values in you. A good teacher is a change agent and a friendly co-worker. If you really are a change agent, and you know always we are aspiring for the betterment of wherever we are, improving ourselves, making our lives happier, making others feel more welcome, treating them with a sense of dignity and respect. So a good teacher is one who will ensure, because the job of transmitting knowledge and skills brings a lot of change. So as a change agent, am I playing that role? And am I a friendly co-worker? A good teacher is a learning specialist. I mean, we have moved, of course, a long way from the Gurukul system. At one time, when the majority of the population did not need the kind of education, the kind of learning, because society was very different. So there was a guru, and a guru actually means one who is able to dispel ignorance, dispel darkness. So since those days, thousands of years back, that system worked. So he or she, and always it was a male usually, the guru, would choose a handful of disciples, and they would be transformed. He could only work with a small handful, 8, 10, 15. I don't think ever in the Gurukul system you had more than 20 or something. Today, of course, we live in the age of universal education. We live in the age of internet. We live in the age of artificial intelligence, which is in now some respects overtaken human intelligence. So it's a very vastly different times that we are passing through. So we are always a learner. And today's, most of the teachers, professors, if they are truly humble in themselves, will acknowledge that the role they play is that of a facilitator. We try to facilitate. And it's an axiom that the children of every generation are smarter than the previous generation. Then you have a good teacher is a content-based techno-pedagogue. I mean, this is a bit of loaded. So content, when you are transmitting a certain amount of knowledge, how effectively is that content conveyed to your class, to your listening group of people, that they would find it easy to grasp, internalize, and then continue in their further exploration of that particular domain, that subject. And a good teacher is an action researcher and evaluator. Today's age, any topic, any subject, there is always so much available already. Now, how do you innovate? We have a whole lot of knowledge that's there, available. But how does it apply on the ground? is it going to be beneficial to the society in which we live, to the community that we wish to serve, to the institution to whom we are committed? So in that respect, there is always a constant action. There is new research to be carried out, and then you have to constantly evaluate. Because simply getting occupied with topics that begin with words and end with words will not have much merit. It might get you a degree or might add to your own USP and the CV, but in terms of education, it will not be that useful. And finally, a good teacher is a well-wisher of all humankind. So friends, we live in an age of globalization, of interdependence, and yet majority of the human beings, their worldview is extremely circumscribed. Most people, they never get a chance of an exposure to the larger society. Though today we have access, I mean, the internet can become such a wonderful creative tool to transform society. But when we read the newspapers, when we switch on the television or the radio, much of the media, much of the news that comes is all extremely depressing. And it talks about the degraded humanity, while it should be the opposite. All this wonderful technology, advancements that's happening, so surely there is something wrong. We never teach our children that they need to be anxiously aware about the social reality that surrounds them. So in the Baha'i community, one of the things we constantly remind ourselves is each one of us must be anxiously concerned with the age in which we live. Only when that awareness is generated can we look for solutions. So in the paper, I have tried to capture a few more of these ideas, and by way of recommendations, I mentioned that an ethical person has to always renew, since it is in the plural grammar, to renew their commitment to universal education and to develop and extend common statements of ethical standards and practices that can be accepted, implemented, monitored around the world. Because we live in a world where there is so much of cross-cultural fertilization, so much of interdependence exchange. So unless and until we are able to get out of our box, of our small square or sphere of life, we will not be able to appreciate the globe on which we live. On the one hand, technology is compelling us to go into outer space and create facilities for human settlements. But at the same time, so like this, I'll quickly run through a few of these. To work together with other guiding institutions to provide and strengthen the economic and material base, to address the needs of the world's poorest and least educated. Most of the time, we make a lot of demands from our governments, that they are the ones who are responsible for eradication of poverty, for lifting and uplifting the lives of the poorest of the poor. But it is the responsibility of every man, woman, youth, and child to explore the most substantial and expedient ways to expand and enrich the education of girls and women worldwide. There's a lot of talk about what is it that will empower. Education is important, economic independence is important, but do you really give them the opportunity? How many parents really think that way? To make the best use of the new media and new technologies to broaden intercultural access and exchange, while at the same time honoring local knowledge and traditional ways of knowing, to ensure that broadened intercultural access and exchange have a positive impact in areas of vital concern, with particular emphasis on sanitation, literacy, parenting, and enrichment of the lives of the neglected and dispossessed, to integrate learning about different cultures, religions, and spiritual practices into the standard of educational process, to promote and teach respect for others' way of life, non-violence, and peacemaking at every stage of our learning, to promote ecological literacy and the study of sustainability as essential to education at all levels, to acknowledge that moral and spiritual questions are as critical to academic as to the civil discourse by including considerations of values, personal responsibility, moral integrity, and community service throughout the higher education. These were a few thoughts that I have put together. The expanded version is available in the printed text. And towards the end, I'd like to conclude and say that just as many, many decades ago, when Earthmen landed on the moon, the whole world entered a new sphere of its existence. And it fulfilled a prophecy that poets, sages, prophets, great spiritual masters who had envisioned it and shared that dream. For ordinary human folks, it was something unthinkable, impossible. So what they said, our Rishi Munis had captured it in the two words, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one family. In India, we are taught to look at the world as a family. But if in the West, the westernized education teaches you to look at the world as a market, you see the great two different worldviews. If you look upon the world as a market, then all the time your thought processes steeped into materialism, perpetuating consumerism, competition. So today's world is basically in a state of great insanity, the kind of market forces that are in operation. So it has been turned around, and we look upon the world as one country and humankind as its citizens. So if you really want to bring in ethics in our cultural ethos, in our education institutions, then an effort far surpassing the scale of the Apollo mission that sent men to the moon is needed if humanity has to have a fighting chance of surviving the ravages of climate change. The stakes are high. Without sustainable growth, without restoring the ecological balance, billions of people will be condemned to poverty and suffering. Much of the civilization will collapse. And this picture, of course, becomes more complicated when we introduce the problem of equity. Apart from the moral unacceptability of the situation in which 15% of the world's population is roughly 200 times richer than the bottom 20%. All these are very profound ethical questions. So ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, to build a new world is no easy task. The road is stony and full of obstacles, but the journey is infinitely rewarding. And here, I once again congratulate the Ramanujan College and the Tibet House for having jointly brought us together for this day to reflect on some of the most profound issues that concern the life of every man, woman, youth, and child on this planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Merchanji, for the very insightful presentation, particularly the one which usually is so close to my heart, is what you exactly pointed out today, that everyone, there must be someone in your life who really inspired you. So likewise, why not each one of us become inspiration for others, for youngsters. So this is a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. So next we have Ms. Anshu Sahi from very different discipline, MSc in botany and M.Ed, and very competent, the personality, and also the present trustee and member of the managing committee of the Ayurgyan Nyas. Okay, so we have, please, Anshu Saiji.
Thank you. Dorji Damdalji, principal of Ramanujan College, and SR, esteemed guest and the panelist, who are so well acquainted with the topic. I'm just a small teacher. But like a teacher, that I have experienced like you all, I have also experienced the love and affection and ethical dilemmas with which the world or the children are facing, or we are facing today. So my presentation is technically like a teacher. So I started with the organization with which we belong, which is known as the Ayurgyan Nyas. And it's a very nascent organization. We just started in 2014 with the blessing of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And we are trying to develop a curriculum for students as well as teachers. We are first, I've been hearing from so many people about teachers. And so our basic concept was that we must speak or think about these teachers, and then why? Because I being a teacher, so the kind of dilemmas we go through when we come into this profession. So we thought we'll first talk about these teachers and then proceed through those teachers to the students. So the first thing was we were asked about the morale of a teacher. So morale actually means only the confidence, enthusiasm, and discipline of a teacher, technically. But what brings this morale? The morale of a teacher depends upon the self-esteem, how good my own self-esteem is. So in the morning somebody said about now there is a burden of character also. You want a teacher to be a good communicator, you want a teacher to have a good subject knowledge, and now there is a burden that I also have to have a good character. So probably when you're interviewing somebody, the first thing you are going to say, a teacher must have a good character. Then only the things are going to proceed further. That's what is my firm belief. So the self-esteem is what you think about yourself. The self-confidence, how good I am in things. My enthusiasm, my meaningful professional development. And the last, which is the most important, is a happy workplace. So if I am happy, my morale is going to be very high. Do we agree? So I think we all agree that if I am happy in my workplace, so the earlier speakers have been talking about that we go to a profession and there is so much of dilemma about the profession, what profession should we choose in children, in today's youth. So the very first important thing is, am I going to be happy in this profession? So if I'm going to be happy, my workplace is happy, then everything falls in place and my morale is going to be high. So for a teacher also to have a high morale, we have to have a happy workplace. So before I'll proceed further, there's one more thing. What brings the teacher's morale down? We are poorly paid. Everybody agrees the teaching profession, as compared to the corporate world, is a poorly paid profession. There is a teacher bashing. The parents want something from you. The students want something from you. And if things are not delivered little bit, there's a bashing. There is over-testing. You are tested all the time. The moment we get into the class, we are tested by 40 students which are around it. We are tested by the management, which are tested by the principal. We are tested by everybody, including our parents. We have got unruly students sometimes, and continuously changing and increasing demand of the job. Because we are in an organization or we are in a profession where we have to change along with the changing circumstances of the world. So this is what brings our morale down. The second important thing is the classroom delivery. So to have a good delivery system, we should have a good pedagogical techniques. We should have an environment. I already said that we should have a happy environment. A teacher we must remember that a teacher also comes with their own value system and their own baggages. So when we are talking about a teacher and we are talking about the ethical education of that teacher, we also must address the baggage of that teacher. Because we are born in a kind of a society, we are born in a home where we are taught something, including our students. They are coming from a background where we are taught something, and now we have come into a situation, we want you suddenly to become very ethical. Okay? So that baggage, if we are not addressing that baggage, it becomes very, very difficult to imbibe what we are trying to say. The third thing is the challenges. The teacher's life has got all challenges once we are inside a classroom. The different kind of behavior which we have to face, a teacher has to face. It can be a very conducive behavior of a student if the student likes you. Or like in the morning you were saying that the two students don't come to the class. I firmly believe the student comes to a class if the teacher is good. If the teacher connects. So when we say that a student is not coming to the class, we also have to introspect that what is not correct here. So that is our behavior. Our attitude can be partisan, favoritism, or discriminatory. Do we have this kind of a thing? And that is the reason my student is not coming. So these are the baggages we are coming with, and it requires introspection before getting into an ethical education or something which we desperately want to receive or improve ourselves. The third thing was the learning outcome. So I'm not going to go into the learning outcomes because we are all teachers or students who know what learning out. So there is an objective and there is an outcome. The objective is clear. The objective is that we have to become ethical. We all feel that we have to become ethical. The outcome is, and we go through the correct path, then the outcome is also going to be correct. So there's a need we feel. The missing part is the education curriculums in higher education, in other education, at the school education, don't have this thing incorporated into their curriculums. So it is not that we have to be taught ethics as in the form of moral education. Okay, the ethics can be taught in every subject. If I'm a biologist, I can teach it in the terms of biology. She was an economist, ma'am was an economist. You can teach your ethics in your economics class, or mathematics, or any other subject which you are teaching. So the curriculum is missing, but we can always think about that and bring it into the curriculum. To build, why it is required? To build the character of the young teacher, the curriculum will have to find space of ethical education. And through our curriculum, we are trying to bridge this gap. So our organization is trying to make a curriculum which is trying to bridge this gap between what is there going on in the curriculum and what is actually required in the curriculum. So this is our organization. It provides a platform for students and teachers both to practice the skills connecting with one's own emotions. Venerable Dorji talked about the emotions and said that the emotions are very important. We all have got emotions, and these emotions can be positive, they can be afflictive, or they can be good emotions. So our aim should be to control those afflictive emotions so that they are not marring our personality or our perceptions. To develop ethical decision-making abilities through curriculum based in universal ethics. Sir has talked about universal ethics, and earlier also our mother speaker had spoken about the universal ethics, so I'm not dwelling on that. Now, our curriculum is based on these 5 basic principles. The first principle is understanding and applying restraint. So, to control our reflective emotion, how to apply restraint is the part of our curriculum. The second is developing virtues. Third is learning compassion and care, discernment, and acting on universal responsibilities. These are the 5 premises on which our organization is developing the curriculum for teachers as well as students. So our basic principle is that we are first going to transact our curriculum with the teachers by different methodologies. We'll see the methodologies. So our methodologies are participatory. We are not going into a didactic method or a directional method. We are doing it participatory. And for participatory, we have got all these kinds of methods. One example I'll give you of the method, which is in a situation analysis, which is there is a letter to the mother. You know, it is a letter by a mother whose child does not like the mother because the mother doesn't have one eye. So as the child is developing, he says that I hate my mother, because wherever he goes, the children tell him that your mother doesn't have one eye, and she looks quite gross, so the child even cannot look at his mother. And he grows up, has his own family, and one day decides that he has to go back to his college. And when he goes back to his college, he also remembers that my mother also lives in this town. You know, we were talking in the morning about the compassion, and the first compassion and care which comes is from the mother. So when I was reading the story, I mean, the first thing hit me was that how can a child not like his own mother? But probably this is life, and sometimes it does happen in life that you don't like your mother. And in the end, to make the story short, was that in the end, the child goes to see that, okay, let me go and have a look at my mother, how is she? And the mother is just lying, and she has got a letter, she's almost dead, and she's got a letter in her hand, which says that, in an accident, you had lost your eye, and I never wanted you to be seen like this by other children. You were young, your life was ahead of you, so that is the reason that we did something like I gave my eye to you. So this is the kind of compassion or love or sincerity which should be in the children or in a teacher with which she should speak with her children. So, this is just a very small example. So our whole curriculum is based on situations or case studies or buzzwords, all the techniques which we have used, which are also participatory, so with which we are trying to provide the different kinds of emotions and the solutions that what these emotions do to you. So instead of, this is what is the difference between a mindful, and so because we have also used mindful techniques to do all this. There are two case studies I have mentioned, like we were talking about restraint, just to explain the restraint. So there was a study where it's a real life study, where a dentist is killed. These days we talk about so much of human rage and road rage and rages that we don't know what compassion is all about. We have just probably it's gone somewhere at the back of our mind and we are not thinking about it. So this was a case study where a dentist is killed on a very small thing, that his ball hits somebody. So nobody used restraint, nobody tried to control those emotions, which was on such a small thing. Your car gets stuck on something and they kill you. Or your car hits somebody. Every day we are reading news like this. Vis-a-vis, we had this case of Mahatma Gandhi in Chauri Chaura, where there were policemen who killed people who were doing agitation. The agitators got little agitated and they started hitting the policemen, and in the process the policemen died. And Mahatma Gandhi showed so much of restraint that he just stopped that agitation at that time in 2022. He just stopped that agitation of independence, which was at a very peak stage at that time. So these are few of the things which we have to just sit back and think and show it to our teachers and show it to our students, and that's how I think that the universal ethics and compassion and discernment, all this will develop in the children and in the teachers. So we are talking about our belief is in the self action guided by logic of reason. We all have an innate ethical sense and urges us to make predictable choices. However, ethical education is about recognizing the real power of our own innate ethical sense, how it influences our behavior, and we build our ethical sense on belief that we already bring with us. In the end, there is just the quote of His Holiness, when educating the minds of our youth, we must not forget to educate their hearts. So we have to tackle those or create happiness in those hearts, and rest of it is going to become better. Probably the world will become a better place. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anshuji. So in fact, the kind of the work which Ms. Anshuji and the team are involved with is very detailed, on the ground, the implementation of the universal ethics, particularly to the students. So I can't really possibly think of comprehending what they are doing. So this is a great contribution to the actual humanity on the ground. Thank you very much. So next we have is the Mr. Tsong Gyalpo Arya, the Secretary to the Bureau of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And personally, only if you know him personally, you will be so impressed by the kind of the heart, the incredible, beautiful heart that he has, and proactively engaged in making contributions to the community, no matter what comes. So this is who Mr. Tsong Gyalpo is. So we are very fortunate. So please, Mr. Tsongla.
Geshe-la, thank you very much. So we are already behind the time, so I won't take much time. But then, respected Chairperson, Geshe-la, and distinguished speaker on the panels, educationists, ethicists, and ladies and gentlemen. So I'm very much honored to be here, and I would like to thank Dr. Mishra, Ramanujan College, and Geshe-la from Tibet House for inviting me to share my view on this important topic, ethics. So I don't have much experience and a background on these fields, but then, like Dr. Mishra has insisted, so based on my little services in Tibetan administration in exile and my little association with the teaching of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Buddhist philosophy, I thought I should share something about importance of secular ethics in educational curriculum. So so this is what I have. So without taking much time, it would be good that if I go through what I have written in these few papers. So importance of secular ethics in educational curriculums. How can ethics improve teachers' morale, delivery, and learning outcome? So I would like to begin with a little quotation from His Holiness the Dalai Lama from his book, Ancient Wisdom, Modern World, Ethics for the New Millenniums. There is nothing amazing about being educated. There is nothing amazing about being rich. Only when the individual has a warm heart does these become worthwhile. Unquote. So dear friends, as you know, the teachers are the builders of nation is an old universal adage, and the saying is as relevant today as it has been in the past. Young students that we have in the school and colleges today will ultimately be the one who will succeed us and take over the administration and lead the nation. And the quality of the service and leaderships that they will provide in the future will define the quality of education that these youngsters have received from us. So the role of the teacher and the educational value that we impart to the students are very important. So this brings us to think about what education and what teachers' role is. Education that we generally impart in the colleges focused more on the information and knowledge. Emphasis is more on making them professionals and knowledgeable in order to enable them to stand on their feet and make a good living. But in the process, the moral and ethical development is neglected. we have achieved substantial progress in the field of higher education in terms of producing large number of educated peoples, leaders, expert, professional, etc. But as the quality of the things around us, like leadership, public service, neighborhood security, law and order, improve proportionately. So this is very difficult to say. Despite the increased level of education and professionalism, we have not been able to eradicate many of the ills in the society, and people are indifferent to the sufferings of the others around them. Human values like love, compassion, and tolerance, and concept of putting others before self have taken backstage. These are the ethical values that our youngsters need to inherit and practice if the humanity is to survive. We have many educated professionals who are good in making their living, but are indifferent to the others and societal needs. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said, quote, "Education is more than a matter of imparting the knowledge and skill by which narrow goals are achieved. It is also about opening the child's eyes to the needs and the rights of others. We must show children that their actions have universal dimensions," unquote. So therefore, we need to see that the education that we impart to our youngsters makes them positive and caring members of the community. Education offers knowledge to have a better life for oneself. Education with ethics offers wisdom to live a meaningful life for oneself and for others. Education with moral ethics is what we need to achieve a better and more compassionate society for all. Many of the ills and the problems in the society are man-made, especially by the educated people. These educated people have a great potential to help the people around them and make a meaningful contribution in the society, but they are not aware of this positive potential because their knowledge is not supported and motivated by a good heart and moral ethics. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, "The good heart, which is the fruit of virtue, is by itself a great benefit to humanity. Mere knowledge is not," unquote. So let me share something about Buddhism here. Buddhism is known in Western countries more as a science of mind than as a religion. It talks about the bodhicitta minds, altruistic mind, as a motivational factor to achieve Buddhahood. Bodhicitta is a strong wish to attain enlightenment, motivated by great compassion for all sentient beings. Buddhahood is achieved due to this force of altruistic mind to help others. Nirvana in Buddhism means liberation from samsara for oneself. Here the motivational factor is not bodhicitta but self-liberations. Nirvana can be compared to the achievement of an educated person who can fulfill most of his immediate material needs, whereas Buddhahood can be compared to the achievement of a person who can fulfill the needs of the society. So ethical mind can be a strong wish to achieve educational goal motivated by ethical values for the larger community. A teacher with a strong ethics can inspire students in realizing their ethical minds. So the ethical mind as a motivating factor is a necessary to use educational knowledge for the benefit of all. Without this ethical motivational factor, education can end up fulfilling the narrow interests of an individual and not of the society as a whole. According to Buddhism, the basic human nature is pure and compassionate, but we are not able to realize this Buddha nature or pure aspect of our being because of the mental obscurations due to our negative emotions. Once we are able to tame and overcome these negative emotions, our compassionate Buddha nature mind is revealed. This is a source of joy and benefit for oneself and for others. Therefore, the scholars have thus summarized the Buddha's teaching in a stanza as follows: "Don't do non-meritorious deeds, do things which are meritorious. Conquer your mind." This is the teaching of Buddha. So, non-meritorious deeds meaning unethical things, meritorious deeds meaning ethical things, and conquering the mind means taming and training your minds. So if we look at this stanza, there is nothing religious about it. Ethical values are something very much in us. We only need to awaken it through education and practice. Educated people should be made aware of this ethical mind to steer the positive potential within them to look beyond their individual interests and needs. So in the good old days, we heard folk tales from our parents. Most of these ancient tales contain strong moral message, which we as children held dear to our heart. These days, we don't have time for folk tales. I see these moral and ethical values as the Buddha nature within us that can be activated through proper education and training. So we need to educate our youngsters in conquering the negative emotion and activating the ethical values within them. This will greatly enhance the human value. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has made the promotion of human value as one of the three important commitments in his life. Compassion is the core aspect of human value. Compassion is the key to happy and peaceful society. This compassion can be generated and realized only through our proper understanding that we are all same in wanting happiness and not suffering, and that we are all dependent on each other. It is very important that we take good care in inculcating positive ethical values in our youngsters. We need to inspire and invoke the innate goodness and compassionate mind lying deep within them. The role of religion is important in directing these educational knowledge and professional skill for the betterment of oneself and the humanity. But when we say religion, many are very cautious. Although most religions are the epitome of universal ethics, it may not be advisable to suggest a religious connotations and attribute these to any particular religions. So therefore, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has said that in today's world, religion alone is no longer adequate as a basis for ethics. The teaching and the approach to ethics should be based more on universal truth and understanding than on religious principle. It should be acceptable to those with faith and those without also. This is the essence of secular ethics as emphasized by His Holiness the Dalai Lama in his book Beyond Religions in promoting the human values. So while referring to the word secular and secularism, His Holiness had clarified on several occasions that by secularism he ascribes to the age-old Indian tradition of respecting and accepting the diverse religious tradition. It does not mean rejections of religious principles and beliefs, but rather inclusion of all and including the non-believer. Secular ethics, therefore, means teaching on universal ethical values without relating it to any religious principle or teachings. Compassion, warm-heartedness, altruistic mind, universal responsibility, etc. are some of the important human values that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been sharing with the people around the world. It is only through incorporation of the secular ethics in our educational curriculum that we can build a warm and compassionate society. And educationists have a great role in stimulating the ethical values latent in the minds of our youngsters. A teacher's vision should be to impart education with strong ethics that will motivate his or her students to venture beyond the narrow self-interest and enable them to discover meaning, purpose, and satisfaction in their life through helping others. This altruistic vision to see the students full of compassion, driven with a genuine sense of responsibility and sincere concern for the welfare of others, can be a great motivating factor to improve morale, delivery, and learning outcome for the teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjibal, and particularly you're pointing to the need for cultivating a sense of responsibility to help others. So that is the key that comes out only with the love and affection towards others. So next we have Miss Biali Acharya, and again she's very actively involved in actually implementing this universal ethics in the youngsters. So Miss Biali.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm grateful to the Tibet House and Ramanujan College to provide us an opportunity to put before you what we are doing. Anshuji, my colleague, has already covered. We have our General Secretary of the organization, Deepti ji, here, and my other colleagues from the curriculum development team, Professor Sudhir Kapoor and Falak. So we have been trying to put together a curriculum which is appropriate for the Indian context, especially in schools for this from 6th standard to 8th standard, and we are in the process of developing modules for teachers and workbook for students. So while Anshuji has covered the basic tenets of the project, I would like to touch upon the concept on which we are developing the curriculum. So to start with, we realized that effective teachers, they have to be caring, especially in terms of a school or a classroom setup, and positive teacher-student relationship is another key aspect for to create a learning environment, whatever the age group the students are in. And the third most important point is the high standards of professional ethics. Now, who defines the standards? Are there standards that are set in the Indian context or in the universal context? So, and I also believe, since morning I've been listening, and like Geshala, who also happens to be my teacher, he said that we talk about being compassionate, we talk about being virtuous, but how does one cultivate virtue? How does one become compassionate? And what do we do to become ethical? I mean, we learn a lot of things, so we went into the core to understand as to what can be done to inculcate such behaviors that reflect in every teacher or every trainer or facilitator, whatever we may call them, to create a very positive learning environment. So, a process of reflection is what I believe that a teacher must cultivate within the class. They should encourage to anticipate situations and dilemmas that are in the process going on in the minds of the students. So it also brings in the issue of developing students' self-consciousness with a solid understanding of the concept of universal ethics. I'm only going to talk about concepts here as to how we have gone ahead with it. So here it is a very apt quote that we came across is cultivation of mind should be the ultimate aim of human existence. This is what one of our leaders, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, said many years ago. So have we been able to understand what they meant, the leaders of our country who have given us the constitution, who have actually paved a way? So coming straight into the concept of the mind, what is it that goes on in a mind, in a human mind? So it is more a phenomena, it is the awareness, and it cannot be externally obstructed, which we have talked about. Disturbing emotions exaggerate qualities of the phenomena which are positive and negative. So here I again quote from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He says in his book, the undisciplined mind is like an elephant. The harm and suffering we encounter as a result of failing to restrain the negative impulses of mind far exceed the damage a rampaging elephant can cause. Not only are these impulses capable of bringing about the destruction of things, they can also be the cause of lasting pain to others and to ourselves. Unquote. I guess we all understand that the negative emotions that come to us creates havoc in our minds far more than they impact others. So if our minds are disturbed or there are afflictive emotions within ourselves, we are bound to react in certain ways which will cause negativities in the place or atmosphere that we are in. So, but the good part of it is negative emotions or afflictive emotions can be dealt with. So it is all in the mind that one needs to work upon, our minds. We need not understand the minds of others to start with. It is the mind which is within us. So how can it be done? We have been listening, I've been listening to a lot of good works that people have done, a lot of theories based on which I don't think there's any point in debating whether ethics is required in a society, within the teachers, or in every human being. So what His Holiness the Dalai Lama also says is, use your human intelligence in the best way you can. Transform your emotions in a positive way. So from the mind which generates positive and negative emotions, it is the emotions that we need to deal with at every moment of our life. So what are these emotions? Emotions are subjective feelings. They make us feel in a particular way. Whether we are angry or sad, it depends entirely on the emotions which comes from our mind. They vary in intensity and quality, and they're rooted in mental processes. Our mind is constantly processing information, synthesizing information. It is our responsibility to show us, to understand the information that we get and process them in a positive or negative way. So as individuals, whether we are teachers, professionals, bankers, or students, we need to kind of be alert that our mind is the foremost of it. Virtuous and non-virtuous actions of the body, speech, and mind are not defined by actions themselves. They're defined by the mental states associated with them. It's an example like if we have a platter of good dishes in front of us, our mind is not in order, all of them will taste sour maybe. But if even we are in a calm state of mind, even the simplest food will taste very beautiful and delicious. So it is again the types of emotions or situations that we are in. We can have emotions from a certain situation, and we can have no emotions. If we have emotions, they can be positive and they can be negative. If they are positive, there will be happiness and love, for example, or if they are negative, it will be anger, fear, jealous, anxiety, and sadness. Anshuji has given quite a few examples of how negative emotions can impact our outside nature. It's our inability to apprehend certain situations. It's our assumptions and presumptions that lead us to sometimes realize what emotions are. So if we choose to be happy, we will inculcate positive thoughts and emotions. If we choose to be unhappy, so we will have a lot of negativities within us. So they are the harmful emotions. Impact of negative emotions, I'm sure all of us are aware of it, but quickly, negative emotions undermine our well-being, both in short term and long term. They impact not only us, but also the people around us. Similarly, when a teacher walks into a class, if the teacher is in a bad mood, in a negative mood, the class is impacted very much. And if the teacher is in a positive mood, the teacher has to bring in the positive emotions to start with, bring in virtues, compassion towards the students will immediately connect with the teacher. And even if the teacher has had not a very good day, or a very good situation or an incident, the students will walk up and talk to the teacher. They will have compassion for the teacher. It's a two-way process. for the students and teachers. I guess however much skillful we are in terms of our knowledge, if we do not have virtues and positive emotions and compassion towards our students, we don't connect well. The teachings that we sometimes receive, like a lot of our eminent speakers have quoted that if it is a good teacher, if a compassionate teacher, we remember the teacher and the teacher's teachings forever. But when we have a teacher who's not compassionate, whose virtues like empathy, sympathy, love is not reflected, or then we don't seem to remember the teacher or recall the teacher, even the lessons the teacher has given. So what is it that we take from the classes is important for us. So these are some of the steps that we have, basis on which we have developed our curriculum. We are trying to give the teachers to understand the emotional state. Why recognize the emotions? Why at a certain point of time we become, there's negativity, and what does the negativity does to the students? How does it impact the atmosphere of a caring classroom? So we talk about, there are certain antidotes, like I said, afflictive emotions or negative emotions can be dealt with if it is an attachment to a particular object. So like we are all obsessed with our mobile phones today. So or a certain clothes that we want to wear in a particular function. So what does it happen? The antidote to it is generosity. When we have hatred, can we inculcate loving kindness, like His Holiness quotes often, that what we need to give to the world is the positives. If we are ignorant about many things that we need to learn, our eminent speakers, Dr. Merchant has already said that we all should be learners. So if we are ignorant, we need to recognize that we are ignorant, and we need to move towards wisdom. Anshuji has already talked about restraint. So this is the basis of this is the concept on which our modules, we have completed 3 modules. As of now, the 4th module is yet to be completed, and constant field testing is going on. We are going to the schools, both in urban areas and in semi-urban areas. We're talking to the teachers. There have been several rounds of discussion constantly, and not only with teachers. What is it that the teachers want? How can it be inculcated within the classroom setup? Not having ethics as a particular subject, but to be added on in the daily teachings. So again, the next part comes the ethics of virtue. That is also the premise on which we have a module on ethics of virtue, that how does a teacher has to have all these qualities: patience, forbearance, humility, sharing, equanimity, treating everybody with each other, not being partial, being impartial. So these are some of the qualities that teachers should have, which we have time and again tried to reinforce, whether these are the things, or is there anything else that we are missing out on? Again, the virtue, the basis of virtue for us is ethical discipline. So ethics is not alone. Ethical discipline comes along with ethics. So this is part of the ethics of virtue curriculum that we have already developed. A few drafts of them have been ready. There are experts who've been reviewing it, giving us feedback time and again. And it is under process. We say it is a working document till date. Next comes the compassion. The 3rd module is about compassion, and like all of us know that compassion is sharing others' sufferings, feelings. There are people around, people in the world. When we talk about the universe, can we feel the pain that they're going through? Can we actually reduce somebody's suffering, and to what extent? Whether it's a student, a teacher is considered as a role model. So a teacher, when the teacher expresses compassion or virtues, the children learn on their own to be compassionate and virtuous. Knowledge, there are several examples that we go through, that we come across in the newspapers every day. Take, for example, the case in Jawaharlal Nehru University. They are the most educated people, the most brilliant of the lot, but the kind of heinous crimes that they are conducting in spite of being educated. Are we missing out on something? That's the question as teachers or educators all of us should ask. Where are we going wrong? What can be done to bring in ethics from a very young age and inculcating virtues, all kinds of virtues among the students, so they grow up to be excellent individuals and share the burden of pain and suffering that the world is going through. So I think I've spoken a lot on the concepts on which we have developed the modules, and thank you very much for giving me this platform once again, and any questions we'll be happy to take. Thank you, Geshe-la.
Okay. Thank you very much, Piyali-ji, for the detailed explanation of how the emotions work. So with this, I like to, what we do is that we have several questions, and some of the questions are very specific to the individuals. There's one more like a comment here, and in fact I like to hear from each of the panelists for like 1 or 2 minutes. Is more like a comment which says that a teacher needs to be self-reflective evaluator, so that he or she can connect well with the students and impart education as per the need of the student. Compassion and moral education should be introduced during the primary education through different through different case studies. Ethical studies can be compulsory. So this is at all levels. This is the comment. This comment connects me to ask the question, put in the form of a question, which says that the teacher should be self-reflective evaluator, which means that the teacher, you should be self-evaluator. I'm sure most of us agree with this, but the dilemma is that with this, the implication is if one is not so perfect through evaluation, then does it mean that you should not be teaching? You should not continue teaching? This question. So what is, since that, say we have Dr. T.K. Mishra here, and we have the on the two sides, the actual teachers training, and then we have Dr. A.K. Merchant, very closely associated with many of the institutes, and we have Mrs. Thongyabala, who is very involved in that way, proactively engaged with many of the institutions. So this question becomes very relevant. What is your take in case through self-evaluation, if you see that you are not perfect, will you encourage the teachers to stop teaching, or to do what? And if you stop teaching, do you mean to say that the whole teaching should stop? Because to find such someone who's perfectly okay is very rare. So just 1 minute. No. So basically, I like to give it to first to the panelists. Okay.
On your question?
It's not a question. It's more of a comment.
Okay.
Yeah. So what should we do then?
Well, I have been asked to comment upon a very interesting concept, and that is small is beautiful. A wonderful question. I must appreciate this. You know, out of inflated ego, we get disillusioned and we think ourselves very big. And in that process, we distance ourselves from others. You like a person who considers himself a small person. And that's how perhaps Vivekananda, explained the concept of zero. nothingness. That is the highest level that one reaches. So, if you want to be loved, if you want to be heard by the other person, you need to first admit that you are nothing before his level of knowledge, his stature, and then see how carefully, how attentively he listens to you. So if ever you want to melt the other person's ego, first of all you have to come down and you have to say that I am a very small person before you. And then he will open his ears and he will care to listen to you. So small is beautiful means that we should always try to shun our ego and try to appear as small as possible if we want to look beautiful. Thank you. You have something to say?
Yeah.
It's okay. I just. Hello. Yeah, I just wanted to say that you can't stop teaching if I feel that I'm not compassionate. So the only thing as a teacher, I feel that I should try to inculcate, because we are learners all our life. So all my life I have learned so much from my students. So when I started, or at this point of my life, I'm not perfect. So I've come here, I've learned so much from all the eminent people and all the questions which the students posed, or all the questions which everyone posed. So to say that stop teaching is, I don't think it is correct. We are learners, and I think all our lives we'll keep learning and we'll keep improving. And the same way that I look at the star. So the stars are there, and I may not be able to touch it, but I can just try. Thank you so much.
Shall I take this? I have actually got 3 slips, and well, they can be useful items for a new seminar. Well, the first one actually talks about, is it possible to measure ethical quotient as we do in case of intelligent quotient and emotional? Yeah, there is something called the spiritual quotient. But these are, highly subjective. Human beings, you cannot have a very linear approach, but there are ways to measure. Every human being can measure their own lives every day, and it's very simple. Before you go to bed, look at how your day has passed. Bring yourself to account each day. There is one very famous Baha'i quotation: bring yourself to account each day, ere thou art summoned to a reckoning. For death unheralded shall come upon thee, and thou shalt be asked to give account for thy deeds. And if we do this, it becomes a daily habit. Then what happens is that you are conscious about your thoughts, words, and deeds, and you try to be a better person each day. There will be mistakes, there will be faults, there will be shortcomings, but your willingness to improve and bringing yourself account, it becomes a very wonderful habit. And I think this is the best way to measure ourselves. That are we more compassionate? Did I say something or think something which would have been hurtful or harmful? Or did I behave in a way that should not have been? So you make yourself alert to these things. And I think this is this is something that works for me, and I'm sure it will work for many others. There might be other tools also. Another question was about the simple one about the propagation of technology, whether it's a hindrance in our pursuit for ethical principles, or does it make it a restriction? Again, technology was never intended to be any kind of restriction or any setback, because these are tools. And these tools, if they are used positively, appropriately, they only enhance our ability to acquire new knowledge, to probe into the mysteries of creation. So if technology is always kept subservient, then it can be very ethically used. But just as a kitchen knife, you can use it to cut vegetables and fruits and things in the kitchen, and you can use it to inflict hurt and harm or kill. So it's the way we use technology that will determine. The last question was actually a bit too philosophical and it requires elaborate answer, because you're talking about ideologies, you're talking about economy, you're talking about politics. So how do these interface with ethics? This has to do with the whole conception on reality. What is the nature of reality that surrounds us? What is our worldview? Because a particular ideology, a particular set of political institutions, or economic principles, all of these are the products of human reflection and knowledge that has been generated. So there is fundamentally an ethical principle that should govern. If your ideology makes you hate sections of population, if your economic principles are only designed to benefit a small minority of the population, if your political institutions are defective and prone to decay and be corrupted, then it brings a whole set of questions. So today, actually, our planet is facing these kinds of situations where flawed political institutions, where a flawed worldview, where a distorted ideology, all of these has been drilled into the heads and minds of tender children, youth, and as a result, you have acts of insanity and violence that keep spiraling with no end in sight. So as Baha'is, from childhood, we are asked to question these. We have to have a worldview where we truly become well-wishers of humankind, regardless of race, caste, creed, religion, political background, affiliation, nationality. Because this world is one community. If Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is our civilizational ethos of this subcontinent, then why today 70% of the population in this subcontinent have a subhuman existence? Something is fundamentally flawed. So I don't want to say more because time doesn't permit, but maybe over a tea we can have a few more exchanges. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Samala?
So, like to the first remark that whether like a teacher after self-evaluations, if they find that they are not fit to be teacher, so should they continue or should they leave? So, in this regard, what I would like to say is that every deed has to be motivated properly. There should be a proper motivation for what you are doing. If the motivation is for the goodness of the many people, not for yourself, and then the very fact that you have chosen the profession of teacher is that not to make money, not to earn money, not to make yourself famous, but in order to teach the children so that they can be a, as we said earlier, builder of nations, so that they can be more contributing to the society. So in that sense, if your motivation is good, then you should be pursuing the career. So in your evaluation, if you find that you are not doing the things very well, so with the proper motivation, you should be trying to train your mind and improve. So with this kind of good motivations, I think improvement can be made so that the fulfillment in order to teach better can be fulfilled, I think. So there is no reason why you should resign. And there is one question which Geshe-la wants me to answer. The question is like, Buddhism is a way of life, not a religion. So how can the way of life inspire passion for teaching and lifelong learnings? So my feeling here is also when we say in Buddhism way of life motivated or influenced by the altruistic minds. Altruistic mind meaning to help others in order to put others before selves, to do some good things for others. So when you have this kind of ethical minds or proper understandings, as we said earlier, Buddhism is a science of mind. It is how your mind projects the things. If you feel that doing good thing for others gives you a joy, then this is altruistic minds. So this will inspire your passion for teaching and learning. We say that all joy and all happiness that we get is just because of our wanting happiness for others. All suffering and bad things come just because that we desire happiness for oneself only. So if our passion, if our motivation is driven by this altruistic mind to help others, then this will greatly push your passion also for teaching and learnings. Thank you.
Well, one thing briefly I would like to clarify. A very interesting thing that was asked about ethical quotient, how to measure that, how to know whether you are ethical or not. Oh, absolutely simple. Universal ethics. Ethics itself is universal. And that is how ethics can be distinguished from morality. Okay? Though we are using universal ethics to clarify the thing, but ethics means universal ethics. Now, my definition of ethics is every dealings of yours should depict transparency, honesty, integrity, consistency, and spirituality. You judge yourself. How honest, how transparent, how consistent you are in your actions. And these are the ways you can measure your level of ethics that you are adhering to. That's all.
PLG.
There's one question.
Yes.
There's one question Geishila gave me, which is asked by Arnav Kumar of Ramanujan College. He asked, does being secular means being indifferent, oblique cold to others, or approaching all religions and cultures with equal warmth? So the first part is absolutely no. Being secular doesn't mean that you don't accept anything else. So being secular means accepting. So when we say acceptance, we are accepting every religion, everything with the same love and same compassion which we have for our own religion. And Gandhiji has explained it very well. He has called it as Sarv Dharm Sambhav. So that Sarv Dharm Sambhav is सब धर्मों को संभव करके अपने जैसा करना. So उसको सम्मान देते हुए ऐसा करना. इसलिए secular doesn't mean what is the first part of it. Thank you, Ji.
Responding to the question of whether a teacher who is not compassionate or does not find the level of ethics within a person, I think it's entirely, like Sir has said, it's entirely up to us to assess. And I guess all of us, we ask this question at some point of time, that are we enough compassionate? Are we enough ethical? So when there is a doubt, when we ask our question, there is a scope to develop our mind and our actions. So whatever the questions that come to our mind, we seek answers. If not, we go back to reading. There are enough and more books that will show us the way. I think this human life, as Arya ji has also talked about, that to achieve a state which is towards bodhicitta, I think these are the steps that we need to practice. It's very good. People who ask these questions themselves, I think that this is a very good indicator that the person is aiming or thriving to achieve an higher state of mind. I just had to say this much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, it should be 1 minute. Yes.
I think my comment has been misunderstood, because by saying self-reflective evaluator, to connect myself, or as a teacher to connect myself with my student, means not I'm expecting to be perfect. No, nobody is born perfect. Everybody can rectify and always proceed for the betterment. And here, by saying this, every moment I'm learning, whatever I'm doing, I can reassess, evaluate my past action, what I went wrong with my student and what is better. That is how I'm evaluating myself. I think by saying that, I'm saying every teacher should be self-reflective, not that going for the perfect. No, not at all. Once I understand my student's problem as well as my problem, means I can connect better way with my student. And once I understand my student, I think I can convey and communicate whatever I want to teach him. That is actually
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So it should not be misinterpreted.
By being self-reflective, so that way we see that how to improve ourselves in the future. So this, the ma'am thinks that this is a very important, way of looking at oneself, so to improve oneself, and that your students will be benefited more in the future. So this is a very good point made. Thank you. There's another question, very quick, is about identities. It says, identities are hard to be disowned. Meaning, if you have a feeling that, say, I'm this, I'm Indian, I'm Tibetan, I'm Hindu, I'm this, whatever. So these identities are very hard to be disowned. So idea is, we need to keep in mind two things. Say, one, identities in any ways, each one of us, as I said earlier, we have so many kinds, so many identities. So we need to know what to prioritize. Which is your priority? So as I said earlier, say for example, say there are some who are girls and some who are boys. Girls are girls. Oh, now we have to think of we as a human being, forget about we girls and boys. Then the boys start wearing saris. This is totally chaotic. So therefore you have the identities. So which should be at the top, which should be at the second, third. This is what we need to prioritize. So the basic idea is just be kind to yourself by choosing an identity, the topmost identity, embracing of which makes you happiest and makes your family members happy, makes your community happiest. So this idea, it doesn't mean that you just choose one and discard all. This is not the idea. The first one, second one, third one. So with this, there's no contradiction in one person being a human being, being a Hindu, being Muslim, being the academician, or being businessman. There's no contradiction with one person having all these identities. So with this, I'm extremely grateful to all the panelists here for the very enlightening presentations, plus the question answers, and also to the audience. And Ramanujan, the principal, thank you very much. And the Dr. T.K. Mishra, amazingly proactive, and we could see the tremendous energy there, and the two of the combination of the principal of the college and Dr. T.K. Mishra. This is an amazing combination. So I request that this combination continues and it spreads to the other colleges under Delhi University and to all the universities in India. Thank you very much. And to all the participants, thank you very much. Thank you.